Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, you are
Yes,
audible.
Yeah, sorry for the delay. Am I audible to you all?
Yes,
Hello?
ma'am.
Okay, I'm so sorry for the delay because this was my first class. So I was having difficulty in sharing the screen. So can you please tell me my screen is visible or not? Can you, when I share my
No, ma'am.
screen, can you, okay, I'm just sharing and can you please tell me that it's visible or not? Okay. Hello?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Okay, so can I start now? Some of you
Yes, ma'am.
please say yes or no. So I am fully audible to you all.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. So today I am going to present environmental and nutritional diseases. So what are the environmental diseases? It refers to disorders caused by exposure to chemical or physical agents in ambient, workplace and personal environment, including diseases of nutritional origin. So it will have diseases due to chemical agents, physical agent, and they can also occur as a consequence of major disasters. But these are like unusual, they are rare. They occur only in some of few years or they are like not so common. So some of the example of some these disasters are methyl mercury contamination which happened in Minamata in Japan in 1960, then Chernobyl nuclear accident in 1986. So these are the disasters which also causes significant health problem. So what are this health effect of the climate change? There are two major effects. One is due to rising atmospheric temperature and due to melting of the glacial ice which will cause rise of sea level. So like it has been noted that 15, 15 out of 16th warmest year is happened in 1880. Since 1880 was like demonstrated in 21st century. So most of the warm year are like happening during 21st century. And it has also been seen that there is 80 rise of global average sea level since 1993. And it has also been shown that by 2000 the rise of sea level can be approximately 2 to 6 feet above the normal level due to melting of the glacial ice due to overall global warming. So what are the effects of global warming? There can be increase in spread of diseases, there can be drought, there can be heat waves, there can be flood, storms, tsunamis, etc. So you have to know that what is the cause of this global warming. So these global warming is mainly caused by greenhouse gases. So normally the greenhouse gases are water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane and ozone. So normally some amount of gas is present on the earth's surface. So certain amount of greenhouse gases are required so that the temperature of the earth's surface is maintained for normal survival. However, you can see in this diagram, this is the sun and the radiation from sun strikes the surface and most of the rays are reflected back into the outer space and only some are deflected into the surface, and this causes a warming of our surface which is essential for survival, human survival. However, if you see like there's increase in gas, like these all greenhouse gases are increased due to human activity like industrialization, use of fossil fuels. So now what happens when sun strikes the surface, the most of the light should be deflected into the outer space, but instead of deflecting it is reabsorbed back into the earth's surface leading to global warming. So you can see the amount of this greenhouse gas has significantly increased and leading to global warming. So like this amount of greenhouse is not required. So this whole phenomenon is causing greenhouse effect. And one of the most important thing you should know about ozone layer. So what are the what are the sources of carbon dioxide are due to burning of fossil fuel and due to industrialization, methane is produced because of use of coal in the industries and decay of the organic waste. and nitrous oxide is formed from the fertilizer. And most important is chlorofluorocarbon, which is released from use of refrigerant in refrigerators, air conditioner, aerosols, propellants, and fire extinguisher. So this is very important. Chlorofluorocarbon is very important because it causes depletion of ozone layer. So you can now see normal ozone is present between 10 to 50 kilometer of the Earth's surface. So this is like protective. It protects us from the harmful UV radiation. And this is another layer which is near to our surface. This is troposphere, and it is within 0 to 10 kilometers. So the ozone is present in the stratosphere is like normal, and it protects us from the greenhouse effect and from harmful sun radiation. So what does the chlorofluorocarbon does? It combines with ozone in stratosphere layer and leads to depletion of ozone layer, which is called hole. Actually, it is not hole. It is a misnomer. There is a thinning of ozone layer due to depletion of ozone. And so what happens? The pollutants get the ozone start to appearing in the troposphere layer, and here it acts as a pollutant. So when ozone is present in a stratosphere layer, it is protective and it prevents us from global warming. But when it is present in the troposphere, it acts as a pollutant, and it helps in global warming. Now coming to like one of the mechanisms to remove the foreign from our body is through genobiotics. Genobiotics is a compound. You should remember it is a compound that is foreign to our body. It can be due to a drug intake like various therapeutic agents are being given to patients of cancer. So those drugs, carcinogens, then insecticides, use of insecticide which is ingested in our body, and exogenous chemicals. So these substances are foreign to our body, and after they did the function, they has to be removed from the body, So what are the processes by which this can be removed? It is through two processes. First is that it occurs in two phases, and two phases can occur separately or it can happen independently. So first is hydroxylation and second is conjugation, and the most important enzyme involved is cytochrome 450 system, which is present in the liver, which is responsible for metabolism of xenobiotics, and they are abundant in endoplasmic reticulum cells of the liver. So you can see when there is uptake of xenobiotics in the body, it undergoes two phases, phase 1 and phase 2. So the fat is either it can be eliminated in the body through urine, or it can act as a reactive oxygen species and cause tissue damage. Am I audible to all?
Yes, ma'am.
Coming to now air pollution. So in the United States, Environmental Protection Agency set up, there should be upper limit for 6 pollutants. So these are ozone I have already discussed earlier, then nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, acid aerosols, and there are particulates. And these all air pollutants are produced from the human activity, which I have discussed earlier, and they cause significant morbidity and mortality and causes pulmonary and cardiac diseases. So I will just discuss carbon monoxide. It is a non-irritating, colorless, tasteless, odorless gas. It is produced by incomplete oxidation of carbonaceous material. And so when there is acute poisoning by carbon monoxide, there is characteristic cherry red color of the skin and mucous membrane due to this carboxyhemoglobin. And the chronic poisoning as such is dependent on the level of carboxyhemoglobin, because once it is formed, it is very stable in the body and it is not degraded easily. So constantly low level is toxic to human body, and they act on basal ganglia and lenticular nuclei. So there will be a state of continuous hypoxia, and there will be widespread ischemia in the brain. So that all were, like previously I discussed, that was outdoor air pollution. What are the indoor air pollution? So one of the important of them is tobacco smoking, the use of radon, and smoke from burning of organic material. So I will discuss tobacco. So tobacco is the most common exogenous sources causing cancer in human, and they are responsible for 90% of the lung cancer. So what is the main component in tobacco causing? So cigarette smoking, when you smoke a cigarette, this is a toxic, and So one of the cancer is lung carcinoma. Other cancer like oral cancer has also been documented, and it is not due to smoking, but it is due to chewing or snuffing of tobacco toxin. So in China, China has become the world's largest producer and consumer of cigarette in recently, and there are approximately 350 million smokers, which constitute 33% of the cigarette smoked worldwide. And it has also been expected that there will be around 8 million tobacco-related deaths annually. So now you can see that smoking is so you can prevent this disease by not consuming tobacco in any form. So most common effect is on lung, and so it can cause bronchitis because of inflammation and increased mucus production. It can cause emphysema because it recruits leukocytes, and there is a production of elastase. And the most important is carcinogenesis. It has role in carcinogenesis, particularly polycyclic hydrocarbon present in the tobacco. And it can also lead to atherosclerosis and myocardial infarction. And when maternal smoking will cause abortion and preterm birth. But you can prevent this once the mother ceases to smoke. And there is also passive smoke. So like not only direct, passive smokers also have detrimental effect on the health. So you should remember 2 points, like there are several noxious chemical present in the tobacco smoke. So there is a table given in Robbins, so you should go to that table. So you can see like tar, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and nitrosamine. These are the 3 important components which is carcinogenesis. These are the carcinogens. So you can see that these are the nitrosamine, NNN and NNK. They are like very important carcinogens, and they are responsible for carcinoma of esophagus, oral cavity, apart from lung carcinoma. And the most important causing lung carcinoma are polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. So you should remember the name of these carcinogens present in tobacco. Others are like nicotine. It causes ganglionic stimulation, and others are phenol, benzopyrene. Like there is a long list, but at least you should remember the nitrosamine groups and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon, which are the potent carcinogens. And it has also been shown that a person who is consuming alcohol and tobacco, there is a multiplicative increase in risk of laryngeal carcinoma. And when you smoke, so it is expressed in terms of pack year. Like if a person smokes 1 pack for 20 years, it is equal to 20 pack year. So the development of cancer is directly proportional to the amount of alcohol consumption and cigarette smoke per day. Now coming to metal as environmental pollutants. So lead is one of the most important, but nowadays it has been declined because the use has been reduced. So lead exposure can occur through contaminated air, food and water. And initially it was due to the old horse paints that were used and use of gasoline, but now it has been significantly reduced. So we don't come across so many cases of the lead poisoning. But you should remember that above 5 microdeciliter, this is upper permissible level, and beyond this, the exposure is considered pollutant. So there was a Flint water crisis which happened in US in city of Flint. It was due to the Flint river has a high concentration. The Flint river was having high concentration of chloride, so it extracted the lead from the old pipes and has led to lead poisoning, which was epidemic in that area. So you should also know that ingested lead is particularly harmful to children. They are more harmful to children and adults because 50% of the lead is because they have capability to absorb 50% of the lead from food, while adult absorb just 15%. So it is like more dangerous in children. So when there is a lead absorption, most of them are taken by teeth and bone, skeletal system, and they compete with calcium and phosphate. So they deplete calcium and phosphate from the circulation, and half-life is very long, and it is 20 to 30 years. Once it is absorbed, it will stay in body for approximately 20 to 30 years if you don't remove it. So it binds with the mechanism of action is it binds with the sulfatoryl group in protein and interferes with calcium metabolism. So in children, the most important is brain damage, and it occurs in a form of encephalopathy. And in adult and children both, they can cause peripheral neuropathy, and so there will be wrist and foot drop. So first extensor muscle is involved, followed by peroneal muscle. And excess lead also interferes with normal remodeling of calcified cartilage and primary bone trabeculae. So you can see these are the dense lead line. This is due to this is a lead line which is very you can see in the patient who is having a lead poisoning. So what is the blood changes is the earliest sign of lead accumulation, and you can see they manifest as macrocytic hypochromic anemia, and you can see a distinctive punctate basophilic stripling of the red cell in the peripheral smear. So how do they do? I have discussed earlier. They react with the sulfhydryl group and interferes with the heme synthesis, and it also inhibits sodium and potassium dependent ATPases in cell membrane and causes red cell fragility leading to hemolysis. So how do you diagnose? There will be elevated level of blood lead and protoporphyrin level. Also there will be like elevated level of zinc protoporphyrin. So when there is increase in level of these two components, you can suspect lead poisoning. And this patient will have lead colic, which is like poorly localized abdominal pain. This is a very common symptom. And in kidney, it causes, this is very important, in kidney this causes proximal tubular damage leading to inclusions in the tubular epithelial cell. And chronic lead poisoning can cause interstitial fibrosis and renal failure. There is a term called Saturnine gout. So due to, there will be, this is a state of hyperuricemia because of inhibition of urate transport. So these are the manifestation of lead poisoning in different organs. So coming to now human diseases associated with occupational exposure. So there are now 10 million occupational injury related in United States, and there are approximately 65,000 people die annually due to exposure to this occupational toxin used in industries. So there are several of them. So you should just you need to go through this table to remember some of the important human diseases associated with occupational exposure. So you can see carbon monoxide I've discussed earlier. It has effect on cardiovascular system and brain also. And then these are the list of chemicals like isopropyl alcohol. Wood dust is very important. It causes nasal carcinoma, lung carcinoma, and alcohols, mercury and arsenic. This will affect the nervous system and cause peripheral neuropathy, ataxic gait. And mercury, this naphthylamines has been known to be associated with bladder carcinoma, and benzene causes leukemia, and vinyl chloride is also important occupational hazards which causes liver angiosarcoma. So you need to remember some of the important diseases caused by this use of occupational toxic material. So coming to alcohol, this is very important, and so this is among all illegal drugs, alcohol abuse is more widespread, and it is known that 10 million chronic alcoholic in the United States are present now till date, and it is responsible for more than 1 lakh deaths annually. So 50% of the cases are due to accidents, due to drunk and driving, and related to homicides and suicides. And 15% are consequence of cirrhosis of liver due to alcohol intake. So it's coming to the metabolism of alcohol and what products it toxic to the body. So the most important enzyme involved in alcohol metabolism is alcohol dehydrogenase. It is present in cytosol of liver. So what it causes? Ethanol, when you ingest ethanol, it is converted first to acetaldehyde in liver. So the NAD plus is converted to NADH. So this is one of the most important step in the metabolism of alcohol. So there is a depletion of NADA plus, and there is excess of NADH. This is the most important biochemical alteration happening during the alcohol metabolism. So aldehyde is now converted to acetic acid through enzyme aldehyde dehydrogenase. But most important is alcohol dehydrogenase. It is a NAD plus independent cytoplasmic enzymes, and so like when you ingest more of ethanol, there will be more of acetaldehyde. So it is directly proportional to the alcohol intake. So this aldehyde is not toxic to the liver cells. And some people, especially it has been noted that 50% of the Asians have a defective enzymes. they have defective acetyl dehydrogenase. So this is because of genetic variation. So like any person who is having defective alcohol dehydrogenase, so whenever they take alcohol, there will be like symptoms like flushing, tachycardia, and hyperventilation owing to accumulation of acetaldehyde. It is causing toxicity. And this aldehyde dehydrogenase, it is also it oxidizes acetaldehyde to acetic acid, and so you have to remember that the most common biochemical alteration is due to aldehyde toxicity, and there is increase in ratio of NADH and NAD plus. So there is a depletion of NADA plus, and so like there is a high concentration of NADH, so it will cause lactic acidosis. And so when there is a deficiency of pyruvate, there will be like inadequate oxaloacetate, and so there will be depression of gluconeogenesis, so there will be a state of hypoglycemia. So in alcoholic there will be lactic acidosis, hypoglycemia, and so they like act on TCA cycle. So reduced oxaloacetate, decreased pyruvate, and high NADH will cause a state of ketogenesis. And there will be, because there will be no pyruvate, there will be increased level of acetyl coenzyme A. So due to lack of NADA plus also, there like it is involved in fatty acid oxidation also, so there will be increased fatty acid synthesis, but there will be no oxidation of fatty acid, so it will result in fatty liver. So what is happening, there will be lactic acidosis, hypoglycemia, ketogenesis, and fatty acid. There will be lack of fatty acid oxidation. So these are the metabolic process happening in alcoholism. So other system which is involved in oxidation, detoxification of alcohol is cytochrome P50 dependent enzyme, and among that like CYP2E1 is the most important enzyme involved in metabolism of alcohol, and so it leads to generation of reactive oxygen species, which is also toxic to lipid membrane, and it causes lipid peroxidation. What are the effects of acute alcoholism? So it is a depressant. It acts as a depressant. So it also causes depression of medullary center, and it will lead to respiratory arrest. And fatty change, I told you the mechanism how it happens. So fatty change and gastric damage will be there due to acute gastritis and ulceration. So in acute alcoholism, it acts as a CNS depressant. There will be fatty liver and gastric damage. And the chronic alcoholics will have significant morbidity. So liver is the main site of injury. There will be cirrhosis of liver, and eventually some percentage will undergo conversion into hepatocellular carcinoma, because cirrhosis is the most important risk factor for HCC. And there can be massive bleeding from gastritis. There can be esophageal varices, and this can be fatal. And injury to myocardium can lead to dilated cardiomyopathy. It is also known as alcoholic cardiomyopathy. There will be pancreatitis. And when pregnant mother ingests even a low amount of alcohol, it can cause fetal alcohol syndrome. And so one of the most important effect of chronic alcoholic is malnutrition because of deficiency of vitamin B12. So this is very important manifestation of vitamin B1 deficiency in alcoholics. So it causes two principal lesions. One is Wernicke's encephalopathy, another is Korsakoff syndrome. So Wernicke's encephalopathy is like triad of confusion, ataxia, and nystagmus. And so you can see these are the mammillary bodies which are involved in Wernicke's encephalopathy. These are the petechial hemorrhages occurring, and there will be dilated ventricles. So this is the gross picture of chronic alcohol toxicity. So mammillary body involved in 80% of the cases. What is Korsakoff syndrome? It is just a spectrum, and it is a late manifestation of Wernicke's encephalopathy. And there are like other symptoms, like the patient will have amnesia, apathy, but they have intact sensorium. Other changes can be cerebral atrophy, cerebral degeneration, and optic neuropathy. So these all are due to deficiency of vitamin B due to intake of chronic alcohol, and this constitute malnutrition in patient who is taking greater amount of alcohol. So coming to know injury caused by therapeutic agents, these are due to the intake of conventional therapeutic drugs, and so it has been the side effects are very common, because and it is believed that 7 to 8% of patients admitted to hospital suffer from adverse drug reaction, and 10% of such cases can be fatal. So these are the various drugs which are administered to the patient during the course of illness, and these are the various reactions which can happen with the use of this drugs. So like when we are using anti-neoplastic agents, immunosuppressive in transplant patient or in the treatment of cancer, so it causes blood dyscrasia. So there is a bone marrow depression, there will be a aplastic anemia and pancytopenia. And theophylline can cause arrhythmia. It has predominantly cardiac effect. It can cause arrhythmia and cardiomyopathy. And penicillamine, it is nowadays it is like its usage has been reduced, but it has been documented to cause renal injury in a form of glomerular nephritis, acute tubular necrosis. So aminoglycoside causes AT, and this is very important side effect of use of excess aminoglycoside. And tetracycline can cause fatty liver. This is also very important. And so you need to just go through this table and remember few side effects caused by the use of this therapeutic drug in medical practice. So now coming to oral contraceptive. So oral contraceptive contains synthetic estradiol, and it can have a variable amount of progestin. But so like nowadays the newly prescribed OC pills has a smaller amount of estrogen because it has more side effect. But the toxicity is related to the dosage. It is not just the component. It depends on the dosage used in a particular patients. So what are the effects? So the OCP is protective against breast carcinoma, endometrial carcinoma, and ovarian carcinoma. So like when a woman uses OC pills, it protects against breast carcinoma, endometrial carcinoma, ovarian carcinoma. However, it increases the risk of cervical cancer, especially the women who are infected with human papilloma virus. And so you need to remember one of the most important side effect of use of OCP is thromboembolism. And because there is increased synthesis of coagulation factor, when you a female uses OCPs, there is increased secretion of coagulation factor, and this leads to thromboembolism. And specifically, it is more common with third generation OCPs because it contains greater component of progestin, and especially it happens in women who are carrier of factor V Leiden mutation. So what are the cardiovascular complications? It can cause it is associated with risk of coronary artery disease. So like different age have different side effect. Younger than 30 and older women who are non-smoker, they are at lower risk compared to the older women than older than 35 years and the women who smokes. So it is also associated with hepatic adenoma. So if you the continuous usage of this OCPs can lead to a tumor in liver known as hepatic adenoma. Am I audible to you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what we discussed earlier was use of therapeutic agent. Now what are the when we use non-therapeutic agent, this comes under the category of drug abuse. So there are several category and classes of drug abuse. These are the illegal drugs which are not the usage of which is prohibited. So these come under the section of drug abuse. They are non-therapeutic agent. So what are these? These are opioids, sedative hypnotics, psychomotor stimulant. So I will discuss cocaine in detail, and then cannabinoids. These are marijuana, nicotine, and there are other classes of hallucinogens. So LSD is an important hallucinogen and it acts on serotonin receptor. Coming to cocaine. So in 2014, it has been estimated that there are about 1.5 million users of cocaine in the United States. So and basically they use crack cocaine. So what is crack cocaine? So and the usage is common among the age group 18 to 25 years in United States. So this cocaine is extracted from the coca plant and it is prepared as water soluble powder by using cocaine hydrochloride, and in the street they also combine with talcum powder, lactose and look-alike material so that they can sell it in powdered form. So what is crack cocaine? Crack cocaine is that crystallization of pure alkaloid from cocaine hydrochloride. When you crystallize the cocaine hydrochloride, it releases a sound like popping sound. So that's why the term crack is used. So there are two forms. One is powdered form, another is crystallized form. So crystallized form is more potent. That's why it is more common to use compared to the one powdered form. So when cocaine is mixed with tobacco, it is more dangerous, and this can be snorted, smoked, or it also can be used subcutaneous or intravenous. So when you intake of cocaine, there is intense euphoria. So main effect of cocaine use when somebody uses cocaine, so it causes intense euphoria and mental alertness. So it is one of the most addictive of all drug. There is no physical dependence, but psychological dependence has been noted. And acute overdose will lead to seizures in brain. There will be cardiac arrhythmia and respiratory arrest. So you can see it is affecting all the major organ of the body. So what is the mechanism of action? It acts as a sympathomimetic agent. So it blocks the uptake of dopamine and epinephrine and non-epinephrine. So like you can see, it blocks the uptake of epinephrine, dopamine and norepinephrine. So there is like accumulation of these neurotransmitter at the junction, and the effect is intensified. So like excess of this neurotransmitter accumulates in the synapses, and it manifests as tachycardia, hypertension and peripheral vasoconstrictor. So all the effect is due to sympathetic stimulation in peripheral and central nervous system. And in the cardiac, it will cause myocardial ischemia leading to coronary artery vasoconstriction. And you have seen like whenever these substances are like taken along with cigarette, the effect is more pronounced and the damage is more. In CNS, it is called hyperpyrexia and seizure. And in fetus, if pregnant women take cocaine, it can cause fetal hypoxia and spontaneous abortion. So it is like lethal to the fetus. And you should also import. So like these were the acute effect of cocaine intake, and the chronic usage can cause. So you should remember the cocaine users can have perforated nasal septum, and it is seen especially in one who snort the cocaine. So that's why they prefer to take crystallized form. So the powdered form causes more perforation of nasal septum. So like they prefer taking cocaine in crystallized form. There is a decrease of lung capacity, and it can also lead to dilated cardiomyopathy. Other is the use of heroin. It is opioid. It is addictive, which is derived from opioid, and so the main side effect is sudden death, and it is related to overdose because the form of heroin available can contain any amount of heroin. Like it's not like it can range from 2 to 90%. So easily the person who is not knowing the concentration can intake can cause sudden death due to overdose. There can be pulmonary symptom, edema, septic embolism, infections. So first is acute death can occur due to overdose. Second is infection is very common in this patient. It can involve skin, heart valves, liver or lung. So in heart it causes endocarditis. You will be reading in your heart chapter, and right side of the heart is involved, and mostly the causative organism is Staphylococcus aureus. And so like this, like you have seen in cocaine, there will be perforated nasal septum, but in heroin they have cutaneous lesion is more pronounced. It can have acute changes, can be in a form of abscess, cellulitis, ulceration, and in chronic form there will be scarring at the injection site. And kidney damage is also it's a very common and common hazard encountered. So there will be amyloidosis, and so you should remember there will be amyloidosis secondary to skin infection. Coming to marijuana, it is also known as pot, and so like now the use has become legal in some of the some of the states in United States, but still it is undergoing evaluation whether this usage of this drug should be made legal or not. It is derived from the leaf of Cannabis sativa plant, and the active component is THC. So like when marijuana is smoked, 5 to 10% of THC, which is the active component, is absorbed in the blood. So it is mostly effect on CNS. There can be distorted perception and impaired motor coordination, and in lung it can lead to like infection sort kind of like picture will be there. There will be laryngitis, pharyngitis and bronchitis. So when like a person smoke marijuana with tobacco, like I have discussed with other substances, the effect has become more pronounced because the tar inhaled is inhaled deeper and for longer duration of time. So now coming to physical agents. Physical agents can most importantly mechanical trauma. It can be due to vehicular accident. It can be abrasion. So epithelial layer is mostly, epidermal layer is mostly involved in abrasion. There can be contusion. So it is there in contusion there is damage to blood vessel leading to extravasation of blood in the tissue. And laceration is another form which is caused by application of force of blunt object. Incised wound, there is breathing blood vessel are severed, so there is cut in the blood vessel leading to, and mostly it is inflicted by sharp instrument. It can be puncture wound and gunshot wounds. You will just go through all this thing in forensic medicine, so I'm not discussing in detail. Coming to thermal injury, so burn is most important, and in United States there is approximately 3,500 deaths annually due to burn. So mostly children are the victim, and it is caused due to scalding by hot liquids. So it depends on the depth of penetration of burn, percentage of body surface involved, etc. Hyperthermia, this is due to exposure to elevated ambient temperature, and it can lead to heat cramps, and it is mainly due to loss of electrolyte during sweating. It can lead to heat exhaustion, and it is most common hyperthermic syndrome. Because here there is the cardiovascular system failed to compensate for electrolyte loss secondary to water depletion. So there is a state of heat exhaustion. There will be heat stroke, and because of high ambient temperature and high humidity, there is a failure of thermoregulatory mechanism. And you should also know that malignant hyperthermia is a misnomer. There is no hyperthermia, and it is a genetic condition because of RYR1 gene mutation, which affects the calcium metabolism in skeletal muscle. So you should remember that malignant hyperthermia is not hyperthermia. It is genetic condition caused by defective calcium metabolism in skeletal muscle. Coming to hypothermia, it is due to exposure to low ambient temperature, and it predominantly occur in homeless alcoholic. And at 90 degrees Celsius, there will be like bradycardia, arterial fibrillation, and lower core temperature, causing damage to body. Coming to radiation, this is very important, and you should know some of the terms which I will be discussing further. So, like the use is indispensable because it has a very important usage in routine medical practice in treatment of cancer, diagnostic imaging, and as well as therapeutic and diagnostic radioisotope. It can be it can be used in therapeutic or diagnostic management, but it has also like other disadvantage of using radiation because it is mutagenic, carcinogenic, and teratogenic. So radiation is of two types, non-ionizing and ionizing radiation. So basically we are concerned with ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation are like X-ray and gamma rays, neutrons, alpha particle, and beta particle. So what is the mechanism of action? They have a sufficient energy to remove tightly bound electrons from the orbit. So there is a state energy generated from ionization. And what are the non-ionizing radiation? They are ultraviolet light and infrared. So they are not used in treatment because they cannot remove the electron from the orbit. They can just move or cause them to vibrate. So like whenever somebody is exposed to radioactivity, so first step is exposure. So exposure will cause ionization, which I told there will be like displacement of electron from the orbit. Then there will be like absorption of radiation. Then there will be equivalent dose, and then there will be effective dose. So you should know the conventional and the SI unit for these doses of radiation. So like when there is exposure, so the SI unit is coulomb per kg, and for radiation absorbed dose, the SI unit is gray, and 1 gray is equal to 100 rad, and for equivalent dose it is sievert, and for both equivalent dose and effective dose it is a sievert. So like when there is absorption of radiation in the body, so there will be like equivalent dose. Equivalent dose depends on the radiation factor. Like different ionizing rays will have different radiation factor. Like alpha rays will be more damaging compared to gamma rays. So different radiation will have different equivalent dose effect, and it depends on the radiation factor. Then after equivalent dose, there will be the effect of the radiation will happen, and this will depend on the tissue sensitivity. Like different tissue in our body will show different response to exposure to radioactive substances. Like bone marrow, they are very sensitive, and on contrary to that, neurons are radio resistant. So what is the sequence? First there will be exposure, there will be absorption, then equivalent dose, then effective dose. So this is the sequence how the radiation acts on the body, and you should remember the SI units. So most important now we are using is in terms of Sievert. So this is a table in the Robbins. So you can see different. This is a dose of 0.15. So you can see that at a lower doses, this causing sterility in male, and so it is like damaging in testes. However, like dose of 2 to 6 is damaging to ovary, causing sterility. So you can see the effective dose is different for different organ. That is why it is important to remember the importance of equivalent dose. So this is the effect of whole body radiation. So when you increase the dosage, the effect on different organ is different, and like the more the dose, the lethality is more and damage is pronounced. So what are the major determinants? How is the biological effect happening on the exposure to ionizing radiation? It depends on the rate of delivery, like a small fraction in larger area. So like they deliver, they are not given, they are given in fractional doses. So because so as to inhibit repair, because the aim is to impair the growth. So different they are administered in fractional doses, and it also field size is very important. Like when you're giving higher doses in a smaller area, the effect is more profound and damage is less. It also depends on the cell proliferation I discussed earlier, like sensitive cells will be like rapidly dividing cell will be more sensitive than non-dividing cell. So the mechanism of action is damage to DNA. It also leads to the state of hypoxia due to production of reactive oxygen species, and there will be like vascular damage due to damage to endothelial cells, and ultimately it will lead to fibrosis and chronic ischemic atrophy. So what is the main mechanism of action of ionizing radiation? It causes DNA damage and it can contribute to carcinogenesis. So, and it leads to mutation, and it can manifest, it doesn't manifest acutely, so it takes years or decade to it can take years and decade to form cancer. And ionizing radiation can cause many type of damage to DNA. It can be single base damage, double strand break, or it also called cross-linking. And so one of the common side effect of cancer radiotherapy is fibrosis, and but it develops weeks or months after usage of irradiation. So this is all about the environmental diseases. And so coming to now nutritional diseases. So the World Health Organization define severe acute malnutrition as a state of greatly reduced weight for height ratio that is below 3 standard deviation of WHO standard. So like 16 million children under age of 5 are affected. So nutritional diseases predominantly affect children under the age of 5 years, and it is more prevalent in underdeveloped country, and it is major contributor to high death rate among the very young children. So what are the nutritional disorder? It can be protein energy malnutrition, obesity, anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, vitamin deficiency. So coming to like these are the two important protein energy malnutrition, marasmus and kwashiorkor. So marasmus is slow to develop, and there is a deficiency of calorie intake and protein intake. This like there is a deficiency of both calorie and protein intake, and it happens in children younger than 1 year. So it manifests immediately after birth. So you can see this is a marasmic child, and they are alert and irritable. So the most important pathophysiology, their subcutaneous fat is not preserved, so there is a severe muscle wasting. You can see there is a severe muscle wasting, and the children is emaciated. However, the visceral protein compartment is preserved, and there is no edema. So since visceral protein is preserved, you will have a normal albumin level. So what are the features? The patient will have a thin matchstick-like arm. There will be prominent ribs, and they have an altered body thermoregulatory mechanism, and they will have severe dehydration due to lack of calories and protein in the diet. So they are more prone to anemia and secondary infection because of deficiency of T cell mediated immunity. However, in Kwashiorkor, it is acute phenomenon. There is just a lack of protein. They have a normal. These children will have normal calorie intake, but their diet is deficient in protein, because it happens because due to birth of second baby in the house, the mother weans from breast. There is a sudden weaning from the breastfeeding, so this patient will have deficient protein, and it usually affects children between 6 months and 3 years, and they are lethargic, and they have poor appetite, and you can see subcutaneous fat is preserved. It may be it can also happen because of edema, and the visceral protein is there's severe loss of visceral protein compared to marasmic children, in whom the visceral protein component is preserved. So they will have generalized edema, and serum albumin level will be reduced. So what are the features? It will have edema in the skin. They can have dermatosis. So there is an alternate band of hypopigmentation, and desquamation. And patient, they have a fatty liver. There can be they can have a defective hair color, and both marasmic and Kwashiorkor child are prone to secondary infection due to loss of innate immunity. Coming to obesity, it is a state of excess adipose tissue. So WHO define overweight as BMI greater than 25, and more than 30 will be obese. Etiology, it is now turning into epidemic. So the etiology is multifactorial. It can be depends on race, metabolic factor, genetic factor, endocrine factor, dietary habits. So there is imbalance between energy intake and energy expenditure. So like there is in obesity, there is excess of adipose tissue. So this adipose tissue now produces tumor necrosis factor, chemokines, more of chemokines, and pro-inflammatory cytokine. So there is a state of chronic inflammation, and there is increased inflammasome effect, and this leads to insulin resistance, and the circulating lipid also contribute to increased inflammasome in response. So in obesity, you should remember it is a state of a hyperactive chronic inflammation. It is a chronic inflammatory state because of increased chemokines and cytokine in the body due to increased adipose tissue. What is metabolic syndrome? There will be obesity, central obesity, insulin resistance, hypertriglyceridemia, low HDL, and they are more. There is a more increased risk of cardiovascular diseases, and it is more common in Indian, probably due to low level of adiponectin. I will discuss adiponectin later on. So what are the medical complications of obesity? Patient will have insulin resistance, and they will have type 2 diabetes mellitus, cardiovascular complication in a form of congestive heart failure, coronary artery disease, and they are at increased risk of stroke and depression. They can have osteoarthritis, gout, skin changes in a form of acanthasis nigrans. They will have fragile skin, and they are more prone to fungal and yeast infection. And very important association is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and 10 to 20% can cause cirrhosis, can undergo cirrhosis. In GIT, there is a state of cholelithiasis, and it is more common in obese female. And one of the most important symptom of obese patient is respiratory symptom is hypoventilation syndrome, also known as Pickwinian syndrome. They will have apneic spells, and it can cause hypogonadism and menstrual irregularity in female and male. And obesity is also linked to various cancer. In male, it can cause a GI cancer and prostatic cancer, and in female, it causes GI cancer, breast cancer, and gallbladder carcinoma. So what is the obesity pathway? How this obesity leptin pathway operates? There are three components you should remember. First is peripheral or afferent component. So peripheral system. So the main component is leptin and adiponectin, insulin, ghrelin, and peptide YY. So you should remember that ghrelin is stimulates appetite. This is the only hormone which stimulates appetite. Otherwise, all other hormones are playing a role in satiety signal. They reduce appetite. So we should remember ghrelin is a appetite stimulating hormone. And central pathway is arcuate nucleus and hypothalamus. So it has two neurons. It will have appetite suppressing neurons comprising of POMC and CART, and appetite stimulating neurons comprising of NYP and agouti related peptide. So what does POMC does? It activate efferent neuron through melanocyte stimulating hormone. So it will reduce food intake, whereas agouti related peptide will augment food intake. So it will have orexigenic effect. There are two types of regulation. First is short-term regulation. It is ghrelin take parts. So when there is like your stomach is empty, ghrelin is stimulated because it is a meal stimulating hormone, and so it signals it sends signal to brainstem. So now brainstem sends signal to hypothalamus, and there will be so they activate appetite stimulating center, that is NYP and agouti related peptide. So there will be increased food intake and there will be less of energy expenditure. But when the stomach feels like there's a distended stomach, so it will again send a signal to brainstem. So it send now signal to appetite suppressing neurons, that is POMC and CART. So there will be there will be signal to reduce food intake and more of energy expenditure. So this is short-term regulation of like how this is how it is regulated. So ghrelin is the main hormone which is participating in short-term regulation. So like when there is a full stomach, so the peptide hormone like there are several peptide hormone like PYP, they send signal to appetite suppressing neurons, and so there will be less of food intake and more of calorie burn. Coming to long-term regulation is by two hormone, leptin and insulin. So more the fat, there will be more leptin. So body will send signal to so they will send signal to appetite suppressing neuron to take less food and consume more energy. While low leptin, because of low adipose tissue, so it will send signal to body to like consume more food and less of energy expenditure. You should also remember that the leptin is regulated by insulin. So when there is when there's ingestion of food, insulin is released, and then it signals leptin to like reduce food intake. Into anorexia nervosa, so it is self-induced starvation resulting in weight loss. So it can manifest as amenorrhea and hypothyroidism, and major complication is cardiac arrhythmia and sudden death due to hypokalemia because there is severe electrolyte imbalance. Whereas bulimia nervosa is due to binge eating, and so patient always induces vomiting, and they like major complication is due to frequent vomiting, and they like frequently use laxative and diuretics. So in both condition like anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa, there will be electrolyte balance leading to hypokalemia. So they are at risk of cardiac arrhythmia and sudden death. Now coming to vitamin deficiency. So I will discuss two vitamin. They both are fat soluble vitamin. First, vitamin A. So these are the fat soluble vitamin, and vitamin A comprises a group of compound known as retinol, and this is a active form of vitamin A, then retinol and retinoic acid. So like retinol and retinol are interconvertible, but like only retinol can be converted to retinoic acid. It is not like this. This step is not interconvertible. So like retinol ester is a storage form. It is mainly stored in liver in cells of Ito. So like vitamin A is body can derive vitamin A from two sources: plant source, which is beta carotene, this is provitamin A, and from meat source like animal source, and this is preformed vitamin. So like after ingestion of any of the source, the vitamin provitamin and preformed vitamin is converted into retinol. So they are taken up by enterocytes, and enterocytes they are taken by enterocytes, and then in a form of retinol, then they are released in blood, and in blood it is packed into chylomicron, which is a lipoprotein, and with the help of lipoprotein E receptor, it is stored in liver in a form of a retinol ester. So like from liver, it is released in a blood where it combines with retinol binding protein, and so now so then it reaches the peripheral tissue where it is released, and it is converted into retinoic acid and acts on the target organ. So you should also remember that after releasing from the retinol binding protein, some are converted into retinol and some are converted into retinal, which takes participate in the visual cycle. So what are the function of vitamin A? There are 4 important functions. It participate in visual cycle. So how it participate? Yes.
Ma'am, our gynae teacher is asking कि lecture कब शुरू करूँ?
Okay. So almost I finished. So like it's okay. So only vitamin. Okay. So shall I end the class?
Ma'am, if the last question is done, then we can end.
Yeah. So this is vitamin A. It participates in visual cycle, growth and differentiation. And so these are the changes of vitamin A deficiency. So vitamin D, it is also fat soluble. It participates in calcium and phosphate regulation. So hypoglycemia and hypophosphatemia increases production of vitamin D. And so these are the effects of, so patient deficient in vitamin D will have rickets, and it is due to excess of unmineralized matrix. And there are various changes. It can lead to rachitic rosary, Harrison sulcus in skull. It can have craniotapes and frontal bossing. Thank you. Okay, then you can join gynae classes.